Welcome to the History AI podcast, where the past comes alive with facts, anecdotes, and a dash of humor. Here are your hosts, Chuck and Marco.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the History AI podcast. I'm Chuck.
And I'm Marco. And today, we're diving into the life of someone who might not be as famous as her brother, but still a total legend in her own right, Cynane, the sister of Alexander the Great.
That's right. Cynane was a warrior princess, a fierce leader, and, as you'll hear, an absolute force in the chaotic aftermath of Alexander's death. It's about time we shed some light on her story, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Cynane's life was the ancient version of why aren't there more movies about this person? If you love tales of military strategy, political intrigue, and, well, family drama, this episode is for you.
So, let's start with the basics. Cynane was born around 357 BCE, and her story begins with some major family dynamics. She was the daughter of Philip II of Macedon, one of the greatest kings of ancient Greece, and an Illyrian princess named Adea. Now, this combination of Macedonian and Illyrian heritage is really important for understanding who Cynane was.
Right, because the Illyrians were known for being fierce warriors, and Cynane's mother, Adea, made sure her daughter was raised with that same warrior spirit. While most Macedonian noblewomen were focused on marriage alliances and courtly politics, Cynane's upbringing was more hands-on, let's say.
That's an understatement. Adea trained Cynane in combat from a young age. Think about that for a second. While other young princesses were learning how to play the lyre or perfecting their court etiquette, Cynane was learning how to wield a sword and fight in battle.
Yeah, and it wasn't just for show either. Cynane's skills were no joke. She was trained in hand-to-hand combat, archery, and military strategy. It's rare for women in ancient Macedonia to receive such training, but Adea wasn't about to let her daughter be sidelined.
Exactly. You see, Macedonia was already a rough and tumble place, with constant warfare and political intrigue. Philip II himself was a brilliant military leader who expanded Macedon's power across Greece. But the Illyrians? They were on another level when it came to warrior culture. Cynane grew up straddling both worlds, the discipline and strategy of Macedonia, and the raw toughness of Illyria.
And let's not forget, her dad wasn't just any old king. Philip II was a military genius. He revolutionized the Macedonian army with the creation of the phalanx formation, a strategy that would later help Alexander conquer half the known world. It's no surprise that Cynane had a deep understanding of warfare given who her father and mother were.
That's a great point. Cynane was a product of two powerful cultures, one that valued military strategy and expansion, and another that glorified warrior traditions. And she didn't just inherit these qualities, she embraced them. By her teenage years, Cynane was known for her military prowess and even led her own troops into battle.
Yeah, which leads us to one of her most famous feats, Cynane's campaign against the Illyrians. Now, get this, she didn't just fight in a skirmish or defend a city, she actually led a Macedonian army into Illyria and crushed an Illyrian army in combat. This was a major victory, and it really cemented her reputation as a serious player in the world of ancient warfare.
This is where Cynane's story starts to get really interesting. She wasn't just some figurehead or a pawn in her father's or brother's ambitions. She took initiative, and this military victory was proof that she could command respect on the battlefield, something very few women in ancient Greece could ever claim.
Absolutely. The fact that she led troops in battle and won is a testament to her abilities. And it's not just that she won, it's who she beat. The Illyrians were fierce fighters, and Cynane not only defeated them, but she did so in their own territory. It's kind of poetic when you think about it. She was partly Illyrian by birth, and then she goes on to defeat them as a Macedonian commander.
That victory wasn't just about military glory, either. In the cutthroat world of Macedonian politics, leading a successful campaign made her a more legitimate figure. It wasn't just her birthright that gave her influence, but her proven capability in battle. Even the men in her family, including her famous brother Alexander, had to recognize that.
Speaking of Alexander, let's not forget how Cynane fit into the larger family picture. She was the older half-sister of Alexander the Great. Same dad, different moms. And in the Macedonian royal family, Those kinds of distinctions were important, but Cynane made sure that she wasn't overshadowed by her younger brother's legendary exploits.
Right, and it's interesting to think about what their relationship might have been like. We don't have many direct accounts of Cynane and Alexander interacting, but it's clear that both were ambitious and both understood military power. They were raised in a highly competitive and dangerous environment where everyone was constantly vying for influence. Cynane wasn't going to let her brother's fame eclipse her own goals.
Exactly. Even though Alexander was off conquering the Persian Empire and becoming one of the most famous figures in history, Cynane was still making moves back in Greece and Macedonia. She was deeply involved in the politics and power struggles that followed their father's death, and her military success only added to her influence.
So, who was Cynane? She was a warrior, a leader, and someone who refused to be sidelined in a male-dominated world. While her brother went on to change the course of history, Cynane was doing the same in her own way, fighting battles, making alliances, and positioning herself as a key figure in Macedonian politics.
And that's why we're talking about her today. Her story is too incredible to be left in the shadows of her more famous brother.
Alright, so we've established that Cynane was not just a warrior, but a highly capable and ambitious woman. But her story doesn't end with her early military exploits. It's really after Alexander the Great's death in 323 BCE that Cynane's political maneuvering took center stage. The empire her brother left behind was vast, stretching from Greece all the way to India, but it was also fragile, with no clear successor.
Exactly. Alexander's sudden death created a power vacuum that threw the entire Macedonian Empire into chaos. His generals, known as the Diadochi, or successors, immediately started jostling for control over different parts of the empire. But it wasn't just a contest among men. Cynane saw an opportunity in this upheaval to strengthen her own position and secure her family's legacy.
And let's not forget, Macedonian politics were ruthless. It wasn't just about military strength or bloodlines, it was about outsmarting your rivals at every turn. Even though Cynane wasn't at the front lines of Alexander's campaigns, she understood how power worked, and she knew how to navigate the complex web of alliances and enmities that made up the Macedonian court.
Right, and the key to Cynane's plan after Alexander's death was her daughter, Adea. Adea had royal blood through Cynane's lineage, which made her a valuable pawn in the high-stakes game of succession. Cynane wasn't just thinking about her own survival, she was thinking long-term, aiming to place her daughter in a position of power, and through her, secure her own influence.
Adea, who later took the name Eurydice, became central to Cynane's strategy. Here's where it gets really interesting. Cynane had her eye on Philip Arrhidaeus, Alexander's half-brother. Now, Philip Arrhidaeus was technically the next in line to the Macedonian throne, but he had some serious limitations. He was likely mentally disabled or at least not seen as capable of ruling effectively on his own.
And that's what made him the perfect target for Cynane. Marrying her daughter Adea to Philip Arrhidaeus was Cynane's power play. She knew that if Adea became queen, Cynane could essentially rule behind the scenes. It wasn't about the title of Queen Mother, it was about real influence over the Macedonian Empire at a time when everything was up for grabs.
Exactly. It was a brilliant political move. By positioning Adea as Queen, Cynane would have put herself in close proximity to the throne, giving her significant leverage over whoever tried to claim control of the empire. Cynane wasn't just thinking in terms of family pride or ensuring her daughter's future. She was thinking in terms of consolidating real power.
But, of course, nothing in Macedonian politics ever went smoothly. Enter Perdiccas, one of Alexander's top generals and self-appointed guardian of the royal family. Perdiccas saw what Cynane was trying to do, and he wasn't about to let her disrupt his own plans for power. Perdiccas wanted to control the empire through another marriage alliance, one that he could manipulate more easily.
Right, and this is where we see just how much of a threat Cynane was viewed as by the male rulers of the time. Perdiccas sent his brother Alcetas to intercept Cynane before she could carry out her plan. It wasn't just about stopping a marriage, it was about eliminating a powerful rival. Cynane wasn't just a royal widow or a mother of a potential queen, she was a legitimate threat to Perdiccas' ambitions.
And Perdiccas understood that as long as Cynane was alive, she would keep pushing for her daughter's marriage to Philip Arrhidaeus. So, Alcetas was sent to deal with the problem that Cynane represented. And when I say deal with, I mean he was sent to assassinate her.
That's right. Alcetas confronted Cynane, and despite her reputation as a warrior, she was ultimately overpowered and murdered. This was a cold-blooded political assassination, meant to remove her from the chessboard entirely.
Exactly. She stood her ground. Cynane wasn't just some noblewoman trying to make political moves, she was a warrior. She was ready to fight for her survival. The historical accounts of this encounter are hazy on the specifics, but we know that Cynane put up resistance. It's likely she even confronted Alcetas directly, unflinching, as she knew the stakes.
It's hard to overstate just how bold Cynane was in this moment. She could have run. She could have tried to negotiate or bribe her way out of the situation. But instead, she confronted Alcetas, fully aware that this was likely a fight she couldn't win. Alcetas, doing his brother's bidding, eventually overpowered her, and Cynane was murdered on the spot.
But here's the twist: Cynane's death, instead of stopping her ambitions, had the opposite effect. She had been so respected, so feared, that her murder actually ignited outrage among the Macedonian troops. The soldiers who were loyal to the royal family, many of whom knew and admired Cynane's warrior reputation, were furious that she had been killed so unjustly.
Exactly. In a dramatic turn of events, the Macedonian soldiers essentially mutinied. They forced Perdiccas and his allies to allow the marriage of Adea to Philip Arrhidaeus to go through, just as Cynane had planned. Think about that for a second. Cynane was more powerful in death than most people are in life.
It's incredible. Even after she was gone, her plans moved forward because of the sheer respect she commanded. The fact that the army backed her daughter's marriage shows how deeply Cynane had embedded herself in the power structure of Macedonia. The soldiers saw her as a legitimate figure in the royal succession crisis, someone whose wishes couldn't be dismissed, even by her murderers.
It's almost like a final victory for Cynane. She was killed to prevent her from securing power, but her death only solidified her daughter's position as queen. Adea, now Eurydice, became a queen in her own right, and Cynane's political ambitions lived on through her.
And what's more, Eurydice wasn't a passive queen either. Like her mother, she would go on to play a significant role in the turbulent politics of the Macedonian Empire. Cynane had clearly passed on her strength and determination to her daughter, ensuring that the fight for control over Macedonia didn't end with her own death.
It's such a fascinating story because it shows how women like Cynane were able to exert real influence in a world dominated by men. She wasn't just fighting on the battlefield, she was a master strategist, using her family connections, her daughter's marriage, and even her own death to shape the future of an empire.
And all of this happened in the immediate aftermath of Alexander the Great's death, one of the most chaotic and crucial periods in ancient history. The fact that Cynane played such a pivotal role, even when she wasn't the one with the army or the crown, speaks volumes about her intelligence and determination.
Definitely. Cynane's story might not be as well known as Alexander's, but it's just as impactful. She didn't conquer nations like her brother, but she did something just as difficult. She manipulated the levers of power in a highly unstable empire and almost single-handedly set up her daughter to rule.
And that's really what makes Cynane stand out. She was more than just Alexander's sister. She was a political force, a warrior, and a mother who understood the stakes of royal politics better than most of her male counterparts.
A true warrior till the end, and even beyond. So, what's the big takeaway here? Cynane was more than just Alexander's sister. She was a warrior, a strategist, and a mother who almost single-handedly shifted the political landscape of Macedonia after Alexander's death.
Absolutely. Cynane's life is a reminder that history isn't just shaped by the famous figures we always hear about. There are people like Cynane working behind the scenes, or in her case, right in the thick of battle, making moves that have long-lasting impacts.
And it's also a story of how powerful women operated in a world dominated by men. She wasn't sitting back waiting to be told what to do. She took control and made sure her voice was heard, even in a brutal, male-dominated environment.
A total trailblazer. I feel like she's one of those figures who should be more widely known, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. She deserves more credit. Hopefully, we've done our part today to put her back on the map. Well, that about wraps up today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the story of Cynane, the warrior sister of Alexander the Great. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to give us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. It really helps the show grow and reach more history fans like you.
And don't forget, we're always taking topic suggestions. You can hit us up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. We love hearing from our listeners.
Also, check out the show notes for a link to our new merchandise. You can sport some History AI swag while you listen to our evergreen episodes. No matter when you tune in, the content stays fresh and relevant.
Thanks again for joining us today. I'm Marco.
And I'm Chuck. We'll catch you next time on the History AI podcast. Discover the dark, enchanting world of shadowed journeys, the tales of Jordan and Squishy. Follow Jordan, a seemingly innocent girl with a hidden power, and her loyal companion Squishy, who reincarnates into different animals after each battle. Venture into the ominous depths of the Whispering Woods as they face fierce creatures and uncover ancient secrets. Will Jordan succumb to the darkness within, or will she find the strength to forge a new destiny? Perfect for fans of dark fantasy and epic quests, this spellbinding tale will captivate and leave you pondering the fine line between hero and villain. Dive into Shadowed Journeys today. Available on Amazon now.